bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Oh, how nice it is to see everyone. Good evening. It was great because I saw you yesterday. Many of you were with me yesterday. We did a little bonus, a little extra on New Year's Day. And so here we are on the second of the newest of the new year, 2024. And so welcome, my friends. Good evening. My name is Joette Calabrese. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been a homeopath for, 36 years, 35 years, something like that. And I do this every Monday night. It happens to be Tuesday this week, but generally it's every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and I do one thing and one thing only, and that is I teach you what I know in homeopathy, and I hope that you are here to learn and to help others and maybe even connect to each other. Hi, Anne from Ireland. Hello, nice to see you. We're going to be talking about memory tonight. Indeed, for those of you who do know me, welcome, my friends. It's great to see you all. We have friends from Facebook and X and Rumble, and what else? I have to look at this. YouTube, of course, and most importantly, my mighty members who are with me on a regular basis. You folks are great. I connect with you pretty frequently, but we also connect tonight and other Monday, and this happens to be Tuesday night lives. So hello from Singapore. Hi, Yana. Wonderful to see you all. Indiana and Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, I'm on my way to Charleston, South Carolina in a couple of days. I'm really looking forward to it. And hi, Rona, Rona from Ajax, Ontario. And I'm going to say hello to a couple more people so that we can waste a little time getting to see each other. And also because I want to make sure that everyone is with us tonight. I'm going to show you something kind of interesting tonight, something a little different that that might help you understand why I am so on fire about using protocols. And for those of you who don't know what I mean by protocols, it means not only do I teach you what medicine to use for a specific condition, but also what potency, and also the frequency. So we'll talk about that tonight. But tonight we're going to talk about memory. And we're going to leave off from where we were last week. And last week, I've got my information here, my notes, I should say. And last week, we talked about a couple of medicines, Califos, which is an excellent one, and Barita carbonicum. But this week, we're going to talk phosphoric acid or phosphoricum acidum. Great words, aren't they? But this week we're going to talk about calibromatum. Calibromatum. And so what we know about memory is that we see little nuances about how the person is incapable of comprehending sometimes, of remembering. Certain people remember certain things and other people remember other things. Certain people forget certain things and others forget other things. Some might forget nouns. Some might forget where they are in the middle of a sentence. Others might get lost in well-known streets. So when we say my memory is not good enough, my friends, that's not enough information. Because we're talking about homeopathy here. We're not talking about supplements or vitamins, and we are certainly not talking about synthetic, commercialized, highly promoted drugs of commerce, are we? No, we're talking about the medicine that was given to us by intelligent men and women of old, based on the principle of like cures like. And so I won't go too deeply into that, but I will tell you that we're going to go through some of these medicines, and then I'm going to show you something that I hope demonstrates why I believe protocols are more often than not, especially for the student, superior to study in homeopathy. So first, as I said, we're going to talk about Calibromatum. Calibromatum, nope, let me step back. Sorry, I wanted to finish that thought. Not only do we look at how a person doesn't have memory, what part of their memory is kind of missing or is struggling, but also what accompanies that. Is there a gut issue? Is there a chest issue? Are there headaches? Is there a history that we have to take into consideration that is noteworthy enough to consider part of the whole picture? So now let me get into Calibromatum, which will be our first one. Calibromatum is a person who forgets how to speak. And when you ask the person what you just said, they can't do it. They can't repeat what you just said. So it is when you say, so, Mom, and the reason I say that is because we often see this in the elderly. Mom, tell me how you're feeling today. Today. Feeling today. How are you feeling today? And so the sentence that she would normally respond with is, I am feeling cold. I am feeling well. I'm feeling tired, etc. And so the memory can be even for repetition of a sentence. And the person has the memory is so weakened that it's as though it's been wiped away, like eraser on a chalkboard. Now, it does not have to be every day, all day. That's one of the mistakes many people have problems with in homeopathy. Their mistake is that they believe that, well, it doesn't happen every day, so that must not be a symptom. No, it does not. No one says it has to be every day. In fact, you'll never see, or I don't know that you'll ever see, an asterisk that says the keynotes to a medicine to determine which medicine is that it must be every day or that it must be all the time. Well, there are times when she's lucid, and there are other times when it just seems like she's washed out. Her memory is so diluted. There can be an accompanying part of this in which the person cries in their sleep. Now, just because someone cries in their sleep doesn't mean that we use Calibromatum. It does not Kaliumbromatum or Calibromatum, K-A-L-I, 2 words. But if there is a weakened memory and they cry in their sleep, now we have 2 legs to a stool that might hold up our argument for the use of this medicine. Also, what else can happen during sleep? They can sleepwalk. And many times people think, well, they're not walking. See, people get too literal. They got up and they're sitting on the floor in the dark room. That, my friends, is sleepwalking. We don't want to split hairs and get so pedantic about this that we can't see that, in a sense, it is sleepwalking because the person had to get out of bed, so they had to walk to their sleeping position. And so there can be crying in the sleep, and there can also be screaming in the sleep. Now, this is a great medicine for 2 areas in society, 2 demographics, so to speak, children and the elderly. Now, don't get me wrong. This does not mean that it can't be for someone who's 50 years old. It can't be for someone who's 35. I'm telling you where the weight of this medicine for this particular condition in memory, loss of memory, perhaps, and let me also say parenthetically, it may not be that they ever had a good memory. They may have been like this all along. But an inability to remember, an inability to complete a sentence, an inability to hear what they've just said and then repeat it. Just because they are 50 years old, 30 years old, does not preclude it from being considered. Just like pulsatilla is an excellent medicine for girls going through menarche. And it's a great medicine for women who are pregnant. But it doesn't mean we can't use pulsatilla for a man. Those are just the weighted aspects of the medicine, where we see it a little more frequently. Okay. Calibromatum. So how would we use this? Well, as you know, generally speaking, I like to use 200. Sometimes I like to use 30s, X or C. I'm not specific about X or C because it's not a specific protocol that I'm giving you for this. What I'm giving you is information on a general a general condition and one of the medicines. I don't have a specific protocol using calibromatum. So instead, I draw from my store of protocols and then make an assumption, and that is, since we normally use medicines in a 200C for a condition such as this, we're going to follow through and use calibromatum in the same fashion. That's not 100%, my friends. I'm giving you very loosely formed general rules of thumb. How often would we use something like this? If we're not so sure, I wouldn't use it too heavily. I would use it maybe once every other day for a few days, for a week, see how it goes. If you see improvement, but it's not done, we're not asking for perfection, my friends. Remember, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for this elderly person to be able to finish the sentence. We're looking for this elderly person to no longer have whatever that suffering is in the middle of the night with crying and screaming, so that they can sleep more peacefully and those around them and their family can sleep more peacefully. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a little improvement in the thinking and in the memory. Do we want this person to be able to memorize War and Peace, all the names in War and Peace? No. We're not looking for someone to come out and become something so extraordinary in their memory that it's gobsmacking. What we're looking for is an amelioration of the symptoms so that the person can start living a life that's a little more in tune to how they should be living their lives, how they can live their lives. Okay, yes, thank you very much. That is Natalie saying, please remember to like, comment, and share this video. And also subscribe, my friends. It really does make a difference. Okay, I've got another medicine that I want to tell you about that I think is it's kind of fascinating. I actually have two of them that I'm really excited about sharing with you tonight. But first, I'm going to take a sip of my water. Okay. The next medicine is cannabis. Homeopathically derived cannabis indica. Cannabis indica. I find that this medicine is most useful for the children of potheads. I'm sorry, excuse me. That's what I have. That's the way I think of it. So I'm going to be blunt with you. The children of parents who smoke, have eaten a good deal of marijuana, particularly around the child's conception and during the pregnancy, or even around the child at an early age, so that the child was inhaling it him or herself. I actually knew people who did that with their children, or child, I should say. I don't know. I didn't know that many people. I think I remember 2 couples who did that back in the 70s. Yes, indeedy. Or from a parent who indulged on a regular basis and then procreated. I'm not saying that all children of parents who smoked marijuana pretty heavily are going to suffer a memory loss. But when they do, if you know that history, you might be able to nail it with homeopathic cannabis indica. Now, here's one of the clues. That's one clue, isn't it? But you're not going to say when somebody has a loss of memory, did your parents smoke marijuana? You don't need to jump that far. You don't need to go that fast. Let's calm it down a little bit, and let's instead find out what they're like. Tell me what you do. What is your life like? And if it's a young person, let's use this as an example. A young man about 28 years old, 25 years old. And he's got lots of ideas, but he's not taking them to fruition. He's kind of at a loss. The parents are concerned. He's not showing maturity. And I have to tell you, this is so common. Do I have to tell you how common this is in young men today, in today's world? How difficult it is around this subject? They're in a fantasy world. And they have great ideas, or they believe they're great ideas, but they never take them to fruition. And so they can have a weak memory. They have forgetfulness. And it seems odd for a young person to be like that. And whether they smoke marijuana or they don't, it could be a very good medicine. They often can't finish a sentence. They can't come to the end of the sentence. It just drops away. And we might think, oh, isn't that a charming little characteristic of this person? No, I would call it a symptom. A symptom for us to use to discover what medicine might help this person for a particular condition. If that's the only symptom, but their memory is intact, and they are not a child of parents who smoked a good deal of marijuana or before conception and then during the pregnancy, then I don't know that I would use anything. It could be just a little charming idiosyncrasy. But if we have this idiosyncrasy where they don't finish a sentence, or they're halfway between, they're in the middle of a sentence and they lose their train of thought, then I have to say, and they have a memory loss as part of that. And it's pretty consistent. Doesn't have to be always there. Again, not every day, not every sentence, not all the time. But if you're seeing this and you're going, you're listening, you're observing, you're watching, then we're going to think about cannabis indica. They have mighty ideas, interesting ideas, esoteric ideas. It's almost as though they have I don't know if this works. I'm gonna put the word out there and see if this works. Kind of a diaphanous way of looking at the world. It's like they're behind a kind of a scrim, like in a theater where they're not fully engaged in the world. They're almost there, but they're not fully engaged. They're sort of in another world, in a diaphanous, maybe even a cloud. Now, I have to also say this is a great medicine for someone who does smoke marijuana, who is engaging in smoking now and has this condition, or has smoked for a number of years and is now elderly and is having this problem. This could be a very, very good medicine. They often have ideas. In my notes, I wrote ideas swirling around in their head, spacey, not connected to reality, fanciful ideas, and difficulty remembering. Okay, Cannabis indica, what potency would we use for that? Well, based on what I've said just a minute ago, it would have been a 200C. But I've used this medicine in a 6C, and I really like the way it works, twice daily. Now, if we use this medicine, regardless of whether or not we choose to use it in a 200 or 6, what happens after, say, 2 or 3 weeks? And there's no change. No change at all. Then what are we going to do? Well, in this circumstance, we're going to abort the medicine. We're just going to stop because it's not done what we'd hoped it would do. Other conditions, thyroid, hypothyroidism, osteoporosis, let me think if I can think of something else, psoriasis, those conditions can take a good deal of time, months, sometimes even a year, sometimes even 2 years. But for this kind of a situation, we are going to use, and those are not conditions that we're going to use with, we're not going to meet that condition with cannabis indica. I'm just using those as other examples in which we might have to use the medicine a good deal, a great longer bit of time. But for something like this, we should see a little shift. What might we see? We might see that young man is climbing out of the basement, away from the computer perhaps, and decides to go get a job. And he starts finding fulfillment in gaining a skill. And his thinking becomes a little more solid, and he starts to think about maybe he should have a bank account or needs to maybe make a little money and invest in something. And instead of borrowing his mother's car, he decides maybe he should purchase his own car. And you see, he's starting to develop his real personality. This can happen with homeopathy. I've seen it a number of times, whether it's because of cannabis indica potentized homeopathically or otherwise. All right, let's see what kind of questions we have. Lynn says, I have all those symptoms, but my parents never smoked pot, and neither do I. So I think what you're asking is, does that mean it has to be? No, it does not have to be that's in order. No, it does not need to be. It is, I'm giving you the characterization or even the caricature of someone who needs these medicines. Those characteristics, those idiosyncrasies, those symptoms that help us flesh it out as a general picture to determine whether or not this medicine is appropriate for this person. But it doesn't necessarily need to be 100% intact if the symptoms fit, if the other symptoms fit. All right, now let's look at I'm going to close down my laptop because now I want to go to something else. I want to go to another medicine that is ridiculously common. So common that many of you who've studied homeopathy have actually probably used it. Why do I say that? Because most of the folks who follow me are mothers. And mothers can often be aided a great deal by this medicine. And so many of you are going to know what I'm talking about. The medicine is sepia. S-E-P-I-A, sepia. The ink of the cuttlefish. Sepia. It's actually the color of the ink. It's got a sepia-ish like color. So I'm going to refer to another one of my Materia Medicas. This is a very old one. Look at the condition it's in. It's falling apart. But I have to say the reason it is falling apart partly is because it's not a very well-made edition. So I'm going to read from this Materia Medica, which is by Phatak, P-H-A-T-A-K, Dr. Phatak. You can find this Materia Medica for free online. You can also use my Materia Medica, which does talk a great deal about sepia. But I'm going to tell you that I like to use these other books every once in a while to give you kind of a rounded understanding of how lovely it is to own these books. The master's books. fatak. So let's talk about this. I'm going to read this section regarding the mind for someone who can be aided by sepia. It's often a woman, not always, but it's often a woman. She's angry, sensitive, irritable, easily offended, and miserable. And she has a difficulty time remembering things. Nobody knows what she'll do next. She's irrational. She's hormonal. She has anxiety over trifles. She has an aversion to a particular person or a group of people. You want to tell me who it is? Those of you who know, when a woman needs the medicine sepia, who does she have an aversion towards? Let's see what folks come up with. We're going to see. Sepia helps me tremendously, says Tina. Okay. Sepia helps me. Sepia. Family, says Nancy. An aversion to her family, aversion to her children, aversion to her husband, aversion to men. It's not men. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. It's not really men so much. It's family. Husband. It's not mother. It's not to the mother generally. It's to the family. It's to those with whom she has a hormonal relationship. And it's usually after a hormonal event such as birthing her babies. That's when the hormones can get kind of off kilter sometimes. So yeah, towards her family. An aversion towards her husband. Often towards the husband, children, says Tammy. You've got it. Yes, Lucinda says, it always helps. Yes, to the sympathy. Yeah, to the company, to family, closest people. Not family in general. It's not to her father, generally. It's not to her mother. It's not to her brother. It's not to the milkman. It's to those with whom she has a hormonal relationship, and that it would be her husband and her children. And this medicine is particularly good for a hormonal imbalance, a female hormonal imbalance, particularly for women after having children or another circumstance. Sepia is a great medicine for when the hormones have been tinkered with by using birth control. Hormonal injections, the birth control pill, the patch, the IUD that exudes hormones every moment of the day, it can throw a woman into a sepia state. So what does this have to do with memory? Well, when a woman is in an off state hormonally, and her memory is lacking or lagging, sepia can be a really great medicine. And what you'll find is that other things will change too. She will find the time for her husband. She will not be as angry with the children. She will not desire to run away from her family. Yeah, during menopause too, possibly. Yes. Hormonal shifts, particularly hormonal shifts that are noteworthy, such as having given birth to a baby during menopause, and particularly when she has been tinkered with by the use of synthetic hormones. Yes. Can I say that loudly enough? Synthetic hormones. What are synthetic hormones? Bioidentical hormones, my friends, are not natural. I'm sorry, they are not. Those are synthetic. Because if bioidentical, wow, what a great marketing term that was. If they were natural, my friends, they would be coming from another woman. They are manufactured. They may have some herbs, but they are manufactured, synthetically manufactured. I cannot emphasize that enough. Yes, and so many women pay for it. Sometimes they pay for it right away. Sometimes they don't pay for it for quite a while. I've written about this. It is one of my pet peeves. We women thought that we were getting freedom, and instead we've been shackled by industrial medicine. Okay, so sepia. I love it in a 200 potency. Now, we like to use sepia in a 200 potency. We don't use it very often. Maybe every third day, maybe even once a week. Me too, says Tina. They lied to us all. Yes, they did. We were lied to. But we know better now, don't we? We know better. We are turning this ship around. We've got the rudder now. We're turning the ship around because we are learning how we have been duped. Okay, so I want to show you something else. This is a book called Dose and Potency. I've had this book for some years. Let's see when it came out. I bought it when it first came out. I'll tell you, it's called Select Your Dose and Potency, excuse me. And it came out in about 2000. I say about because it was reprinted in 2000. Yeah, I guess it's 2000, yes. Okay, so it's called Dose and Potency, or Select Your Dose and Potency. Now, who wouldn't want a book like this, right? Especially if you've been trained using classical homeopathy, because in classical homeopathy, no one gives you any direction on what potency or frequency to use. But in practical homeopathy, the way I teach it, which is using the Banerjee protocols and French protocols and other protocols, we give you the formula. So I'm going to look this up. The way they've got this laid out, the way this author's got it laid out, by the way, this author is Dr. P.S. Rawat, R-A-W-A-T, printed in India. What it is it's broken up into remedies. Each remedy, it tells you what the remedy is. Okay, there's sepia down here. See that down here? It gives you the name of the remedy, and then it tells you the inky juice of a cuttlefish. We know that. And then it goes number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and as it numbers them, it tells you what potency sepia can be used in. And so when I first purchased this book, I was still using classical, having no idea what potency or frequency to use. So I thought it was going to give me answers, but as in most of homeopathy, other than using this method that I teach, which is practical, my practical homeopathy, that name is being batted around and confusing the market square, my friends. But this is very different what I teach, because I give you the entire formula. What they're saying here is in number 1, W.K. Bond, Dr. Bond, you see they have a name associated with each one of these suggestions. Dr. W.K. Bond says use it sepia in a 12th, 30th, and 200th potency. You can use all 3 of those. Not simultaneously. I don't believe that that's what he's saying. Most likely he's saying you can be any one of those 3. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Bond. And that doesn't give us an awful lot of information because we already know we might use it in any one of those potencies, right? Let's skip around a little bit. Now we have the 200th potency works well, says W.A.D. Now, who is W.A.D.? Oh, that's also Dr. Bond. Okay. Now we're going to go to some other ones. These are all the doctors' names that give us the idea. Number 6 says, we can use sepia in the 12th, the 200th, and higher. Single dose of sepia acts for many weeks, and so should not be repeated frequently. I do agree with that. I don't think it should be repeated too frequently, but I find that I like it used every 3 days if it's clearly needed once a week, or even less frequently than that. So I don't completely agree with him, but I don't think it should be used every day. And that is a statement by Dr. N.K. Banerjee. Different Banerjee, spelled differently, different Banerjee. Then we've also got number 9 is sepia can be used in a 30th, a 200 and higher, says Dr. S.L. Kumar. Then number 11, use sepia in the 30th and higher. That's by Dr. George Royal. And then Dr. John Henry Clark, whose books I own, he's one of the greats, he says, I have cured a crop of small velvety warts completely encircling the mouth of the prepuce. Thuya had failed in the case. In reference to warts, I cured with sepia 3X triturated a large horn-like wart on the abdomen of a woman. It was as large as a crown piece, but shaped like a bean and raised 1/4 of an inch from the surface. That, again, was John Henry Clark. So he used sepia 3X for a different condition, mind you, but nonetheless. Dr. Joseph Laurie says I use it in a 3X potency. Dr. E.B. Nash, I have his books, also one of the great minds of homeopathy. Hahnemann used 30th and 200 potencies, says Dr. E.B. Nash. So what they're saying is that, yes, we can use it in a 12. We could actually use it in a 6. We can use it in a 12. We can use a 30th, a 200. These are all the potencies, indeed, that we can use this medicine. So when we say select your dose and potency, this has been one of the problems that we've had in homeopathy for a long time. That there is a school of thought in homeopathy that believes that you should never tell the person the frequency. You should never tell the person, tell the practitioner. You should never teach the student or the budding practitioner what the frequency is and what the potency is. You should make them figure it out themselves. That is one of the problems that I have come up against. And those of you who have had the same problem, you know what I'm talking about. So yes, somebody's saying, yeah, could you find it on Amazon or eBay? It's possible. But I'm going to tell you, this book didn't help me. I thought it would. I mean, you can buy it, and what you will be doing is spinning your wheels. And that is the way homeopathy has been taught for a long time, until the way that I teach it, the way the Banerjees used it. And others, I might add. It's just that the Banerjees saw so many patients. Their clinical evidence was so clear. Their data was so robust that it's undeniable. And so, my friends, there we have it. A few medicines that we use for memory. Sepia doesn't have any specific way of losing memory, but a part of her whole hormonal thing, she knows it's hormonal. She can feel it. And her memory is just not right, but the bigger picture is that she has this aversion to her family, and she's just been dealt, she has another baby she just gave birth to, or even if it's not another's, maybe just the first baby, or she's going through a real hormonal shift, either having been manipulated by chemical drugs, or just by having going through menopause. Indeed. Yes, please share this video to spread this important information. This is important. If we're going to take hold of what is deservedly ours, our autonomy, our ability to be responsible for ourselves, our respectability, we need to take this back. We need to grab it out of the hands of industry and government and put it back where it belongs, at the kitchen table and by the bedside for the sick in our homes. And so with that, I say, God bless all of you. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye now.
With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa, no dairy, it's elementary. With arnica head, arsenica fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Belisol red and arnica hydrocera bark ignatia dark source of frigid and cuprum to rigid and crude itches calica barnicum let it melt on your gumbo vista weed are some great ways to treat yellow la 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 homeopathic protocols learn your remedies. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusinodaria, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenicum fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Belisol red and arnica hydrocera bark ignatia dark source of frigid and cuprum to rigid and crude itches calica barnicum let it melt on your gumbo vista weed are some great ways to treat yellow la 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 homeopathic protocols learn your remedies. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusinodaria, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenicum fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Belisol red and arnica hydrocera bark ignatia dark source of frigid and cuprum to rigid and crude itches calica barnicum let it melt on your gumbo vista weed are some great ways to treat yellow la 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 homeopathic protocols learn your remedies. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa no dairy, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenica fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs of me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Bella so red and arnica head, drosera bark, ignatia dark, source of frigid and cuprum to rigid, and crude itches, calica bonicum, let it melt on your gumbo, to weed are some great ways to treat yellow. La 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 la, homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs of me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa no dairy, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenica fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs of me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Bella so red and arnica head, drosera bark, ignatia dark, source of frigid and cuprum to rigid, and crude itches, calica bonicum, let it melt on your gumbo, to weed are some great ways to treat yellow. La 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 la, homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies.